Hey there, www.andrewmartinmusic.com. This is another late night in the van, another informal chat on what I'm calling Elvis has left the building when it comes to supernaturalism. So, public displays of supernaturalism, why they don't exist in this age, what's called divine hiddenness in philosophy, which it gets linked pretty quickly to the problem of evil and why evil is so prevalent here. So to start with, obviously, this is not coming from an atheist espousing atheist reasons. So there are lots of atheist channels here. If you want to go listen to their explanation for this, well, it's pretty simple. And it's not coming from a Buddhist. So I'm not covering the Buddhist perspective on this, but I might get close to it because I'll touch on Samkhya, which is similar. I'm coming from a Christian Gnostic view of this situation. And first I'll explain why I think Sethian Christian Gnostics have a better explanation for the lack of supernatural public displays than the Roman Catholic version, which is incoherent considering the lack of public supernatural displays. And if we just briefly describe what I mean by this and what's meant by this is, if you go back to the story in the Torah, which of course is false, but it says there was massive public supernatural displays in Egypt. By the time we get to Jesus, he's gone to according to the Roman Catholic Church, don't tell anybody, right? To now, again, Elvis has left the building. And this is a fact, as much as anything can be a fact, because if it was true, every newspaper in the world would be publishing these supernatural stories happening every day, everywhere, especially within Christendom. But the reason it's not true in Christendom is because the Roman Catholic version of the story is false. So the Sethian Christian Gnostic version makes far more sense of this specific issue. Now, the reason it's the Roman Catholic version is false is because God is supposed to be the same yesterday, today, and forever, tomorrow. And although maybe God is a little bit aloof, and Jesus is left until his second coming, the Holy Spirit was supposed to come in and continue this job of supernaturalism. But that hasn't happened, so we know that narrative is false. So the Christian Gnostics have a different view on that whole story and what it was really about. And I'll get into it shortly. But first, let's touch on the Vedic, some of the Vedic views on this issue of why there is no overt, and I'm not talking about people making claims of phenomenological things that they experience. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about overt supernaturalism that is undeniable by millions and millions of people, publicly confirmed by the media and the professionals, right? It just doesn't exist. Okay, so let's be clear and end the bullshit on this about what we're talking about here. So one of the explanations that the Vedas offer is that we are in the Kali Yuga. And the Kali Yuga is the age of materialism. And that started 5 years ago when Krishna left the planet after a great war. And it goes into, I'm not going to go into the Hindu cosmology of this great war and where everybody came from, all the outer continents on the flat earth and things like that. I'm not going to get into that. But there was a great at the end of the last Yuga, there was a great war that Krishna took part in. You can find this story in the Mahabharata, and that's that's when this Kali Yuga started, and they say within this Vedic cosmology that it's going to last for 432,000 years. So the materialism has just started. We ain't seen nothing yet, how our cognition is going to play out over the next 432,000 years. Talk to Elon Musk, right? He's got a plan for that. But that's all ego. Okay, that's not spirit. All he's going to do, all that's going to happen, is they're going to prolong the ego, the life of the ego, through synthetic silicon or whatever, right? So there's the first explanation from the Vedas is supernaturalism is gone because of the Kali Yuga. Okay, that's what it is. Now, there's two primary views that are sort of attached to this, and that's to do with consciousness and God consciousness. And one of them is the personal thing. So at the center of this crater, a 4 billion mile wide crater, is Mount Meru, and Mount Meru shoots up to 7 planetary lokas where personal gods exist, and on the 7th loka is where Brahma, who created this whole thing, exists. Right. So this is the personal explanation of what's going on here. And Brahma has said that he's ordained that this will be the Kali Yuga, and he sent Krishna, and Krishna has left the building, so to speak, as far as a person doing supernatural acts here. So this is very similar to the Christian Sethian Gnostic view, with a major difference, is that those 7 planetary lokas are Archon territory. We call the 7th one, they call it Brahma, we call it Yaldabaoth. It's the same thing. It's these 7 the 7 planetary archons that control this material existence, right? And they don't have supernatural ability. They have what they do is they copy. They're great at doing copying things and artificial simulations and things like this. So that's where the Sethian Christian Gnostics differ than the traditional personal Vedic narrative about supernaturalism and why it has left the building. And with the Sethian view there's no supernaturalism because this is demiurgic territory. It's demiurgic country. It's the demiurgic universe. And the Pleroma has no desire to do supernatural things here. It's only here to wake you up to the reality of your situation within this penitentiary. That's what the Christ consciousness is here to do from a Sethian Gnostic point of view. Now, another view on this in the Vedas is the impersonal view, where Krishna is just directly tied or synonymous with what's called Satchitananda, which is an impersonal ocean that supervenes upon the material universe. It's an ocean of experience, of bliss. Okay, so this apparently supervenes, but from the impersonal school, there's some things to know about it, is that this Satchitananda is not causal to this place. It did not create the material universe. And the second aspect of it is it has no moral ambitions projected onto the material universe. In other words, it's indifferent when it comes to how humans think about morals. The Satchitananda is not a moral agent in the way we would think a personal God is. It's an impersonal ocean of bliss. It doesn't care. It has no more. It's indifferent to what's going on in what's called prakriti in the material universe and all the suffering within this shit show. It has. It's not a god like, say, the God of the Bible, who's supposed to care about your personal misery here. That's not what this is. Okay, so it's an ocean of consciousness that supervenes upon that you can experience. Now, you can experience it for very short periods of time, like I have, or through apparently karmic residual you know, the effects of karma. You can, if you've had good karma, apparently you can stay within the ocean of bliss longer. So it's not as transient. But the thing with the ocean of bliss, although it in itself it has no moral qualities, for a human being that experiences it, it does impart what we might call moral qualities within the person. So there's attributes that it sort of, through osmosis soaks into a human being who experiences Satchitananda. And what that is compassion. People who experience Satchitananda experience compassion for all things, including the evil archons that control this place. It imparts the ethos of non-violence within people who experience Satchitananda. So it's completely different than, say, Yahweh, who loves violence. He loves the smell of burning flesh, right? He can't get enough of it, apparently, through blood sacrifice. It has no ambition. Satchitananda has no ambition to enjoy blood sacrifice. So it imparts the primary attributes that human beings experiences are happiness, bliss, contentedness, compassion, nonviolence, goodwill. It sees other people as worthwhile in themselves, right? It doesn't see other people as subhuman. The people who experience Satchitananda don't view themselves as chosen or somehow better than other people, right? So it's the exact opposite of Judaism in that context, right? This experience of Satchitananda, which I think as a Sethian Christian Gnostic does very much describe the pleroma and the experience of the pleroma, and that's what the pleroma does here. As you become awakened to, as a Sethian Christian Gnostic becomes awakened to Christ Sophia, you gain these attributes of compassion and loving kindness and basically what we call human decency here towards one another. It doesn't make you antagonistic to other people and life here, but from a Sethian Gnostic view, the experience does not negate the horror here. Okay, the horror is still here and it's still going on. Look, this is going to be a bit facetious, but this view of the non-personal Satchitananda, it's going to be, think of like little piggies, right? Your little piggies. And if a little piggy experiences Satchitananda, he's going to be a happy little piggy in the shit. And that's basically what it is. Okay? Now, happy little piggy in the shit who's experienced Satchitananda can sort of put out a vibe to the other piggies who are ignorant and wallowing in shit that there's something better. But that doesn't happen through supernatural displays or anything like that. It's very subtle about what happens here between what's called the enlightened and the ignorant. It's not overt. It's not supernatural in the way that religious people tend to view supernaturalism. So that is basically my take on what's going on here when it comes to the lack of supernaturalism. As a Sethian Christian Gnostic, I don't buy the Kali Yuga story. I think this place is just always like this. It's always been like this. It is what it is. It's Yaldabaoth's material construct. And it's just inherently problematic. At minimum, at maximum, it's a brutal penitentiary, at different grades in between. So, because I'm not a subscriber to the Vedas, I'm a Sethian Christian Gnostic, but I can say, okay, this is where we agree with you, and this is where we think we have a better explanation, or this is where we think we're more correct than the personal Vedic view, where they do agree with us that this place is under quarantine, right? So if you're a Vedic practitioner who believes in a personal Brahma on the seventh loka, you believe at the point of time 5,000 years ago when the Kali Yuga started, you believe that there's a gate that's quarantined this place, right? So all the gods still live on their lokas, but they're not coming here because this place is under quarantine by the authority of Brahma, who wants a 432,000 year age of materialism on this rock. See, that's what they believe. We don't believe that. We believe that we think this place has just always been this way. It's always been problematic. Now, believe me, there are dozens of other god models out there that will also have accounts of this problem, and offer their opinions on what they think is going on here. I've stuck very to a narrow bandwidth of god models here, where I've covered why I think the Roman Catholic view church on this issue is incoherent and wrong, doesn't make sense. And the Sethian Gnostic, Christian Gnostic view does make more sense out of this. And I touched on the sort of personal and impersonal views of the Vedas on this issue. One being like Samkhya and how they view the Christ consciousness, the Krishna consciousness, the Sat Chitananda. It's not causal. It has no moral ambitions to this place. It just supervenes, and through your karma, you can actually access it for small amounts of time or longer amounts of time. And then there's the personal Vedic view, where there's a 432,000 year gate, that we're now in, and we're in this dome. It's a quarantine dome, and the gods are still there. They're just not coming here to do supernatural things. They haven't. That 5,000 years ago they came here, did supernatural things, but that ended that. So the Sethian Christian Gnostics do agree with that that dome, that we're under quarantine. So that's basically my view on what is going on here when it comes to why there is no open, demonstrable, repeatable, verifiable by millions and millions of people every day about why there's no supernaturalism like this, when all the books say there was at some point. So I'm explaining why there isn't now, from very, specific God models or spiritual models. And again, there's many, many other different models that could account for this and have their own account for it. But hey, look it's late night in the van. I'm musing on this, and I'm going, okay, what do I want to cover here? What do I want to say on this specific issue? How do I account for it? So yes, the Sethian Christian Gnostic view, in my opinion, offers the best account on all fronts here. And why it's probably the most hated and most ignored throughout history. All right, so AndrewMartinMusic.com. Ciao.